Hey guys, it's Kip with DT4EMS, and I'm here with Bert Staab, somebody who I am absolutely tickled to know now personally. The shorts of it for this is that for years I was doing the DT4EMS thing, and I kept hearing about this guy, Bert Staab. Everybody, as soon as they would find out what I was doing, they would go, "Hey, well, do you know Bert?" And I'd be like, "Well, I keep hearing of him, but I've never met him yet." So through his reputation, all I could hear was amazing things. People would talk about how fantastic he was as a paramedic educator, how excellent he was with his martial arts, just what a great guy he was all around. And so as luck would have it, finally, years and years later, he ends up becoming a part of the regular EVE instructor team, the DT4EMS instructors. And then we got to meet whenever he blessed me and came to be a part of the team and in the advanced instructor side. And I will tell you that when I finally got to meet him, not only did he, live up to his reputation, but he certainly exceeded it because he's a hell of a guy. And I'm just going to ask Bert to talk a little bit about his experience here for a minute, and then we'll start talking all things DT4EMS and violence and healthcare. So if you don't mind, Bert, just a little bit about yourself.
Well, I started getting a lot of echo.
There you go. Try it now.
I started in EMS back in Iowa. Actually, I was volunteering on the hometown ambulance service there in Remsen, Iowa. I worked as an EMT there. Decided I wanted to become a paramedic. Actually, I truly wanted to be a police officer. Came on as a thought, I would try to get my EMT because I had an accident with a friend of mine, a motorcycle accident, him and a girl, when I was 19, and I felt so helpless on the side of the road, just waiting for somebody to come help. They both actually passed away in that car accident. It was pretty severe, traumatizing, but I really walked away with this feeling of helplessness. And being in martial arts since I was 15, pretty much excelling, doing pretty well at whatever I was putting myself into. I didn't like that helpless feeling. So I took an EMT class to bolster my chance of getting on in law enforcement, and then realized that maybe being a paramedic was what I wanted to be, and decided to do that and worked on my volunteer ambulance. Came down here in 1990 down to at St. John's at the time, now Mercy Hospital, and I've been down here for 26 years as a EMT / then became a paramedic soon after I got here. Also still had that itch for law enforcement, so I joined as a reserve deputy, went through the 120-hour certification program, became a reserve deputy for Stone County. Soon after that, they started a multi-county SWAT team. Needed a medic, and by that time I was a medic, and I thought perfect for me. And I did 18 years on SWAT as a lead medic of the team for a multi-county team, Christian, Taney, and Stone at the time. And then kept with paramedics, and that's kind of my love is EMS. My secondary love, of course, is law enforcement, which I enjoy very much. And being a 4th degree black belt in Taekwondo, martial arts has always been a huge part of my life since I was 15. Taught my own schools for a few years when I was in Iowa. Moved down here. Kind of my life changed a little bit with the law enforcement and EMS and stuff. So kind of started picking up little bits of other martial arts in there with the Taekwondo, adding in some Machado Jiu-Jitsu, adding in some knife fighting and ground fighting and stick fighting and those kind of things. And then years ago, back when I first got here, they said, the EMS director came to me and said, "Hey, we need defensive tactics." And I said, "Okay." And they said, "Well, you're a black belt." And I said, "Sure." And he says, "Why don't you teach something, put something together and teach our guys?" And I said, "Oh, all right." So I put together a little 4-hour class, a lot of PPCT stuff in there, some of the other stuff that I've done for years. And I started teaching EMS. And I kept hearing about this upstart over in the West Plains area named Kip Teitsort. And everybody would ask me in the same way they asked you, "Oh, hey, man, you're doing this. Oh, do you know Kip?" And I go, "I've heard his name a lot. Don't really know the guy." So for 20 plus years, we had this people coming to me and new people coming to you. And then a good friend of yours and one of your instructor trainers called me a few years back, probably in, I think, 2013, said, "Hey, I got this opportunity for DT4EMS instructor school." here in Cox was putting it on here in Ozark. And I said, well, you know, I don't look at other people's stuff as going, oh, well, that's not what I teach or anything. I look at it as, hey, you know what? Anything, and you know, if it's good stuff, it's good stuff. It doesn't matter who teaches it. And you know, I'll steal from you like I steal from everybody.
And vice versa. Vice versa.
Over the years, I think every good martial artist has stolen something from somebody else. Because we're not reinventing a lot of wheels here. We're just, but what I did do is I called my director and said, hey, we can do this. We have approximately 350 EMS people at Mercy throughout Southwest Missouri. So it's a large, and Arkansas and Oklahoma. So it's a very large group. And I said, hey, this might be good. It's a 2-day class, very well organized from what I understand. I said, I want to do the instructor school. And my director, Bob Patterson, said, yeah, get somebody else to do it with you. So you have 2 of us. So I got a guy that I had hired as a young EMT, and a good young guy that can take all the beating while I'm sitting there and trying to keep myself out of the fist suit as much as possible. But he's a real good kid, fireman now. He works in EMS as well. You know, just his name's Brian Hutchins, and he's a great kid. And I brought him on as an instructor with me, and we've been teaching ever since for the last several years, mostly academy classes, but we're trying to work into teaching and actually traveling around and teaching everybody. So it's a slow process, and a lot of times when it comes to administration and such.
You know, most certainly it's been a slow process for, you know, I mean, and it's interesting how, you know, this all came together, because there's, truthfully, if we wanted to say to the world, okay, well, what self-defense technique could Kip really teach to Bert? Truth is, nothing. It has nothing to do with a technique, because you're you, I'm me, somebody else is somebody else. And just like you, we, you know, it's funny because your attitude about training was my attitude about training. And it seems like the people that have you noticed already, and regardless, even prior to DT4EMS, and you and I, you know, on a team, because you still have ideas that I think are brilliant all the time. But even prior to us ever meeting, you know, or let me back it up and say this, would you agree that people with either zero knowledge or people with a ton of knowledge do really well with any type of self-defense message you would have given them for the healthcare provider? But give that person the 3 weeks at the Take My Dough gym, where they took a class one time here, or they watched a video online, and those are the worst people on the planet to try to share any type of real self-defense with. Have you noticed that? So they either know nothing or they know a lot, and they listen because they go, man, you know, I'm always open to listening. But you give that person that's right about the middle of the road that thinks they know more than they do, are those not the hardest people to get through to?
Well, with new people, they don't know anything. So they take everything for, as you say it, it's gospel to them, because they don't know any better. They just say, okay, this is great. And with the experienced guys, they can take their experience and go, okay, yeah, I like this, I like that. I'm not so fond of this, but you know what? Okay, I can do it. And I found as a martial artist, being a black belt, that allowed me to pick up on other things so much easier and quickly. You know, it's a whole different style of kick or whatever, but all I do is take what I do and modify it slightly, and they're going great. So I think that the experienced guys, unless they walk in with the attitude of, look, I know everything, which, you know, you don't normally find martial artists that have been doing it a long time do that. They go, okay, I'm going to go here. I'm going to see what I can learn. If there's nothing I learned, then I'm not out anything. If I learn a bunch of things, and that's kind of what I did coming to DT4EMS. I said, well, I'm going to do the program. I'm going to give it 100%. I'm going to take it at face value, and then evaluate it as I go, and said, oh, this is good. Shoot, I've been teaching that forever. I've been teaching that. Oh, I know that. I've been doing that. Oh, I know a guy that used to teach that a lot. And then I took it all and said, what this program is so well designed that as an instructor, I can come in and teach this program, go through the process, come across, find the little things that maybe I not do better, do differently, because I'm doing what the program is. But a lot of times I show it in a little bit different manner. I stress the things that maybe one instructor stresses this technique or that. I stress the basics.
Well, and that's what makes you good at it, because see, the point is that if we, and take any, you know, whether it be any instructor program, any program, but like, I'll give you a, for instance, that like doing stick and knife work. So after years of doing stick and knife work, you know, and always having to break it down to where I can understand it so I could share it with my people, it dawned on me one day, I'm like, oh my gosh, when it came to, like, you know, a stick or a knife disarm, which again is, you know, incidental if not accidental, we don't always seek that. But if I started finding that if I removed the hand from the weapon, not the weapon from the hand, that the disarm was almost always there. And so I showed that to my, you know, gurus, and they're like, hey, that's right, that makes sense, but they had never said it like that. So when you take something and you're able to see, because of your experience, whether it be a skill or a mindset or a tactic, you know what I mean, or a technique, and you're working with that person, you see they're having an error. It's because of your experience and all the other stuff that makes you great for that person, because you're able to go, you know, well, look at it like this. Because here's the thing. Would you agree that we've said in all of DT4EMS, we go, look, these things that we show on our assault response guidelines are merely what would be acceptable in this type of a situation. At no point did we say, because you're a boxer, your boxing doesn't work, or you're a wrestler, your wrestling doesn't work, or if you're a firearms guy, your firearms don't work. We've never said that. We just have to give some of those people an example who have no idea, and then we're taking those people who are highly trained and go, look, this is where your skill would fall in, you know, here in this medical arena. So your experience actually is huge, man, and it helps so much to your people, because then you're able to see things that maybe other instructors might miss. You know what I mean? So I think it's a blessing.
Right. And I think that a lot of times if you go into a class and the first thing they say is, well, you know, what you know is irrelevant. It doesn't matter what you know. You know, you're going to do this, and this is all stupid, or don't do this. You know, I go in from the aspect of, you know, what kind of training do you have? Does anybody have specific training? And I always say the same thing. I'm not telling you not to do who you are. You're going to do what you want to do. What I'm telling you is, if we try to look at it from this aspect, we try to, you know, these are things that I can come into court later on if something were to happen and say, yes, we train this, or somebody a lot smarter than me, somebody like yourself, or some of your professionals on your end can come in and defend what we do, what you did in this particular circumstance. But, you know, when it comes right down to it, you're going to fall back to the way you go. And it's kind of like when I was doing the advanced course with the knife defense, and there's a pretty good video that was videoed, and like you said at the end, well, some of that was me and some of that was you.
That's right.
It's what worked, because I've trained with, you know, everybody from Master Rick Jewell back in Iowa, Master Bob Jagger back in Iowa. And then I came here and met, you know, people in EMS as instructors that taught me how to be a good paramedic, like Bob Patterson, who I was a partner with for years. And then met guys like, you know, through the SWAT team, and learned from people like BJ Johnson, people like this, who trained me in some knife stuff and stick stuff, and mostly in the shooting end, where I improved my shooting. I couldn't kill myself with a loaded gun, to tell you the truth, when I first started. I took my qualifications on a revolver. Tells you how long ago that was. And I had some guys that trained me to be a crack shot with pretty much any weapon, and also hand-to-hand combat, and advancing myself there, and knife throwing, and you know, things, all those kind of disciplines that, you know, you only get if you reach out and grab people with a good reputation, or that you've seen, or people have told you, this guy's good, you ought to go, and you reach out, and then you work with them for a little bit, and you pick up all these things.
Oh, but wait,
if you go in and say, I'm going to be a black belt in this, and then you never break off, boy,
so you're saying that the people that have the information didn't come to your house and pound on the door and go, look, this is the piece you need, and gave it to you. You're telling me that in order to find your truth, you had to seek it out, you had to research it yourself, and you had to practice and try stuff for yourself. Is that what you're?
Yeah. As hard as it is to believe, that is the way you learn. I sat around for a while and nothing happened, so I thought I'd better reach out. So, like, when I did do the DT4EMS instructor school, I walked in with an open mind, thinking, okay, we'll see what this is all about. And good people that I trust and people that I know told me, yeah, this is good stuff. And going through the program, as we walked through the training and then walked through the instructor's portion, I really saw great value So not reinventing wheels, but teaching things in a way that makes it easier for the mass to understand. Because we have them for 16 hours, and 16 hours is difficult to get anybody to a proficient level. And and that's why it's so important to have a program that's well designed and well set up with easy to do moves that I can teach the 62-year-old paramedic that's been doing it for 40 years, as well as the 21-year-old that's just starting. You know, it's been really a good experience for me all the way around.
Well, and then we've also been trying to, you know, again, it's mission specific. You know, we're not, we're definitely not trying to teach them SWAT stuff. You know, we're not trying to make them martial artists in 16 hours. We're not trying to teach them how to win a fight. We're trying to do very mission specific stuff that, you know, is streamlined to go, look, this is the stuff that we think you need to practice more often than not. And it doesn't always have to be a physical skill. It can be a mental aspect, you know, a legal aspect, things like that we're working on. But what is so important, though, is that, you know, well, let me back up just a second. And would you not agree, or have you experienced it yourself? Because, you know, one of the things that I do, I go around the country and I get people to raise their hand if they've ever been criminally assaulted. Now, granted, we have to define for them what a criminal assault is, you know what I mean, in the healthcare arena, because they've called it all part of the job, or this is all a patient. And so as a general rule, for the last several years anyway, I get 80 to 100% of the room to admit the fact they've been criminally assaulted, but only 2 to 3% ever admitted it, or not admitted it, but reported it, whether it be to law enforcement or their supervisors. Have you been seeing anything like that? Did you see those numbers? And then now you guys are doing it there with Mercy and stuff like that. Are you starting to see a little bit of a change in the culture and the mindset? So have you witnessed the numbers of assaults, and then with little reporting, and then is there anything starting to change with that?
Yeah, I think that it is, because I've been really strong, number one, about stressing that you know, these things need to be reported. We need to change our culture, because it's not really changing people. We have to change us first. Once we have accepted that it's not acceptable, and again, I have the experienced guys in there. Some of the guys have been doing it forever, and you go, how many have been assaulted? And they, yeah, well, do they call it assault? A lot of them don't, because they didn't get hit. But, you know, when you're getting threatened, when you're getting grabbed, when you're getting both, no, we're not talking about the elderly Alzheimer's patient who every time you say something brings their arms up and you know, and tries to fight you. It's like, okay, stop. It's the guys that are out there trying to hurt you. And I stress it very heavily. And then I also point to myself, because I was a supervisor. I was a manager for 14 years. I had one of my staff get assaulted by a regular guy, and one of our regulars who we all knew, if you go on him, he's crazy. He'll fight. He's either drunk or high or both. He will attack you. He will fight when he comes out of his spells, you know, whatever. And one of the guys got assaulted, and first thing he said was, well, maybe I would call the cops. We ought to report him. And I said, really? And I tell on myself, I was the problem. I said, really? You want to do that? You want to call the cops? Now, and then I always put, and when I'm talking about that in the class, I say, I was the problem. As the supervisor, as the manager, as the experienced guy that had been doing it a long time, I said, why? What are they going to do? But don't you think, with my connections in law enforcement, my connections with the prosecutor, my connections, that I couldn't have made a phone call and said, hey, I need an officer here right now. He would have come in, filled out the paperwork. The next day I could have called either the sheriff or called the prosecutor's office, say, hey, I need to talk to the prosecutor. This is Bert. And he'd say, okay, and put me right in there, and I'd be talking to the prosecutor. I'd say, hey, I want this guy going to jail. I want this guy prosecuted. Could not I have done that? I absolutely could have. So when I point that out, I like to use myself as the ultimate example of the wrong thing to do. And the fact that, and when I look back, almost a little ashamed that I didn't protect my staff better than that. But I was of the culture that, well, you know, hey, things happen, you know, don't get hit next time, get your hands up. So I really, you know, and I've seen this over the years, many different incidents where, you know, even when stuff was charged, they don't charge it as assaulting. But there's a specific incident years ago, 4 EMS guys in there, firemen in there, and 2 law enforcement officers, big family squabble. It was a Super Bowl Sunday situation. A lot of this involved, and fights breaks out. The officers are physically attacked in this situation. Everybody, well, in the process of the Donnybrook that occurred, the Jerry Springer show breaked out. One of our guys got sprayed with mace, because police officers, once the mace comes out,
everybody gets some.
Nobody is immune from getting a hit, but him, more than likely. He won't swear himself, but everybody else gets it. And one of my guys got hit. They get him out. One of my other paramedics decided, as the officers were in a fight for their life, in a fight for their gun, did a defensive tactics move. He was taught by some older defensive tactics guy. I think his name was Bert. Anyway, but he leg kicks the guy, shoves him over, knocks over an old lady in the process, knocks over some family members, grabs the officers, and everybody runs out. Of course, police officers show up, and they all come in, and they solve the problem, right? In a very number of ways. And whenever they charged that family with assault, they didn't charge them with assaulting firemen, because everyone was firemen in there. Were also in the midst of a brawl that could have been considered assault on them as well. Nobody considered charging with assaulting the 4EMS people that were involved, that were in there, just assaulting the officers. Now, I don't know about your area, or maybe your area out in Webland, but in Stone County, if 2 officers are in your house and there's an assault occurs on those officers, more than likely a couple jury members are going to be like, well, you were in their house, maybe you deserved it. But I keep thinking back, what if they would have charged them with 2 counts of assaulting police officers, 4 counts of assaulting EMS people, 3 more counts of assaulting firemen? Would a jury then sit there going, wait a minute, you're assaulting our paramedics and EMTs and our firemen that come to my house when I need them? I think a jury would look at that differently than saying, well, the cops, they have to expect a little bit of that. So, of course, the jury came back, or they got not guilty of any problem. Didn't get charged, ended up getting any kind of time or anything or nothing like that. Everything was thrown out. They got found not guilty. And then the lawsuits come down, right? They sue the sheriff's department. They sue the police department. And they also sue one lowly paramedic who was, he ended up getting sued all the way to the end too. Everybody else settled except for Mercy. Mercy said, we're not going to settle on a case that the paramedic did the right thing. And in that aspect, he ended up winning in trial and everything. And Mercy fought it all the way to the end, saying it's not okay to sue paramedics for doing the right thing. And I think in that case, all he did was assist the officers to try to get them out of there safely. And but inevitably, he ended up getting sued, which was just an ironic situation. But again, I think they prosecute that wrong. I think they'd have prosecuted it assaulting EMS and firemen. You might have seen a different result.
Well, absolutely. And so the whole idea, and since we're on the subject of reporting it and prosecution, when you look at the cultural aspect of it, so I did a thing not too long ago about, what difference does it make? Pressing charges, what difference does it really make? And so the short of it is this. First, if the person themselves who's attacked, that EMT, that paramedic, that nurse, or what have you, presses charges, they themselves have said, this is not okay, it's not part of the job. So that's the first part of the mental win that they've got there. The next piece is the police officers then begin to start seeing how much of an issue it really is, because the average officer has no idea how bad violence really is in medicine. Hence, they wouldn't do the hospital with them or jail with me situation. So when the police officer writes his report, they may or may not make an arrest at that moment, but because of so many small towns, which the majority of the United States still is, have newspapers with police blotters. When the local reporter goes in and gets the dispatch log and sees that John Smith was arrested for attacking a paramedic or was cited for punching a nurse or what have you, then the public then begins to see and goes, oh my gosh, who would want to beat up a paramedic? Who would want to beat up a nurse? The problem with these all boil down to definitions, and the average person sits back and goes, well, if I remember when our mom was having that stroke, and when that nurse was trying to start the IV, or that paramedic was trying to start the IV, my mom scratched her, but they didn't mean to. So see, they have a what is or what is not a patient definition, that goes on there as well. So the pressing of charges is huge, because I think if we look back, that it wasn't until about 2004, 2005 that the actual assault on EMS got added to the Missouri statute for assaulting a police officer. And, you know, we go around anymore using an example, kind of like what you have there in that room, but I'll say, all right, let's say EMS has brought in an intoxicated guy into the emergency room. You've got a paramedic, you've got a nurse, and you've got a police officer all standing in a line in front of those an intoxicated individual. The intoxicated individual stands up from the ER bed and smacks all three in a row. Pop, 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 pop. The police officer will not only defend himself, but charge the subject. The paramedic and the nurse are told, it's part of your job. So that's part of that culture thing as well, because, you know, it's been a struggle. But don't you think it's funny? And funny as in ironic, not funny as in haha, that, you know, we've been trying to do something for, you know, well over 20 years. You know, you were at one spot. Now, like I said, I can't believe, you know, we're finally, you know, doing this together, because, you know, you're a huge asset to not only your people, but to the movement and the culture changing message. And it's because of all that stuff you bring to the table. But why is it we've been wrestling with this for so long, and we still have to spend so much time convincing people, you know, that their safety is okay? I mean, you know, it's all right to think about you, which brings me to a quick point. As in law enforcement, where people get confused. So as a police officer, when I show up on a scene, or I arrived at a scene back when I was a police officer, when I show up, my safety is number one. People think that gun a police officer carries is to protect the public. No, that gun is to protect me, right? And so the confusion that people go, well, a police officer has a duty to protect. You need to check out the Supreme Court rulings on that, because I ain't got no duty to put my butt out on the line for anybody else. I may choose to, but you can't force me to. I don't have to take the bullet for you. I might choose to do it, but I can't be forced to do that. Well, anyway, so a policeman arrives with my safety comes first. When healthcare providers arrive, their first thought is the patient comes first. So we've been given all this lip service to BSI seems safe, you know, kind of mentality, but then we really go duty to act, patient abandonment, so on and so forth, and we shift that. Why do you think we still haven't been able to make enough of an impact to get people to listen when they're first training their staff? What do you think's up with that?
I think it's just we all fear change, and we all change pretty slowly in many cases. And I think that most people, when they look at assault on them or on one of their employees or fellow employees, I think they fear what the repercussions may be from the media, or maybe from the administration saying, well, we don't want that. We don't. And it's a lot like assaults on campuses and colleges. They don't put out numbers saying, hey, we had this many physical assaults, we had this many sexual assaults, because that would scare people from going to the college. So they keep all those numbers down. They try to keep that stuff quiet. And I think the hospital kind of looks at it in the same manner, or EMS looks at it in the same manner. I think it's more and more because of the culture we have nowadays. It's not about, you know, if there was an assault on me in Mount Vernon, Missouri, it wouldn't go anywhere unless it hit social media. The local media goes to social media, spreads out through that, and we have such a way of transferring information nowadays that there's really nothing that's kept quiet. Mm-hmm. And like I tell everybody in class, every class I teach, back in the old days, to worry about being on camera was worrying about the guy with the camera that was this big on his shoulder. You saw him coming a mile away. Nowadays, there's not a single person in here that couldn't have me on video in 25 seconds flat. Mm-hmm. And because everybody in this room has a camera right on their camera or on their phone that can be audio and video me immediately. I think that's helped in some ways and obviously hurt in others. Culture change in law enforcement with body cams, and now we're starting to see so much of this stuff that would maybe have blown up as a you know, bad deal and rioting and stuff that we've seen is now coming out when the video comes out from the body cam showing what that officer was dealing with when that incident occurred, and really is more beneficial to law enforcement, I think. But law enforcement community initially with body cameras was like, whoa, wait a minute, we don't like that idea. And administration was like, oh wow, this is how we can protect the system themselves and insurance companies and those kind of things. And I think what's happening now is we're seeing all the positive things that's coming from body cams. So plus as an officer, when I'm working as a police officer, I still am a reserve deputy in Sparta. If I'm wearing a body cam. So that may very well change my behavior or the behavior of the officer. So I think behavioral modifications occurring on both fronts. The officer knows he's being audioed, and it's more likely going to protect him. And something that we've done for years at Mercy, and ever since I've been here, we've always had a road safety system or an all-safe system initially. It's basically a driving computer that monitors our driving. Not only do you see a change in the way people drive, their precautionary skills, they're looking forward because they know, because it basically works if you hit the brakes too hard, it beeps at you. You go too fast, it overspeeds on you. You take corners too hard, it beeps on you. And all those things is basically in behavior modification. The outcome of the behavior modification is, number one, everybody's safer behind the wheel. The paramedic EMT in the back and the patient especially has so much of a nicer ride. And that same modification affects maintenance on the truck because now you're not hitting the brakes super hard because you know you're going to get these beeps. So it's one of those things, and I think that to education, it starts off with a little bit of resistance. And then in the same way in our field, doing the DT4EMS and teaching about assaults and teaching about violence, and then all of a sudden they start putting pieces together, and then they realize the problem, and then hopefully we're the result. We can be one of the results, one of the fixes for it. Like the hospital does their own safe program that they have. I've never been through it, but it's what they teach in the hospital, which is a whole different animal than what fire EMS and even law enforcement have to deal with. Because, if you're in the hospital and you have a situation and you can fall to the ground and use your legs in a basic ground defense, such as taught in our program, as well as taught in the safe class, and yell for help, but you have 10 people that can run in the room. That's a whole different scenario than me and my partner in a house. We went for a sick person, and we get there and find out that it's, yeah, he's a sick person, but all of a sudden he gets up and starts throwing punches, and we're in a fight, And what's good about this program, what I think is easy about what we teach is we're not teaching you to fight. We're not teaching you to win a fight. Get away. And that's so much easier to teach how to get away from a situation, push off, get 3 or 4 steps, run out of the room, than it is to try to teach you how to grapple, get on the ground, and get somebody in a submission hold or something like that.
Which brings up an interesting point, because I, as a lifelong martial artist myself, I found myself going from a physical state into more of a philosophical state, meaning I spent my entire life trying to be a tough guy, trying to be a badass, or trying to be whatever as a policeman, a martial artist, so on and so forth. And once I was finally old enough to understand what it really entailed, now my body's too old to really do that. And so now I kind of look back going, as we get older, we go, you know what, maybe getting into a scrap isn't always the best thing. Do you find yourself thinking anything like that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm 51. As you saw me last time you saw me, I was about 50 pounds heavier, so I'm pretty happy about where I'm at and working toward getting more physically fit from this class. When I'm up there teaching, not that I can't move, not that I can't hit, not that I can't strike, not that I can't throw somebody down, can't, let somebody get me in a choke and twist them and put them on the ground and stick a finger in their eye till they let me go. I can still do all those kind of things. But stamina's not there. My physical fitness was what I consider to be subpar. But I'm up there teaching and talking about physical fitness and talking about this. So I thought, I need to improve myself. And like I said, I've always been a person that's excelled at what I've done. If I put my mind to it and put my effort to it, I've generally excelled at it. Well, and this is something that I want to get myself in a better shape that I can continue teaching this for the next 15 years of my career until I'm retired from EMS. And maybe then I'll still teach if they would let me, because I think it's important. And my drive is to make sure I don't end up at somebody's funeral. Exactly. That somebody didn't know what to do.
But we also need to,
and I was able to help them get through that.
But we also want to qualify too. And for those that haven't seen, I'll make sure we put the clip in it, because you or at least put a link to it in the description down below, because it was obvious from the first few moments when we actually got to meet and train together that you had a ton of skill. And when you were doing various different defenses against the spontaneous type of attacks, whether it be they're shocking you or they're trying to shoot you or it's a stick work or this or that, you prove what practice does, because it was, regardless of how much was of mine you made an addition, how much of it was yours you made an addition, it doesn't matter. The point was, it does matter. I'm just saying that practice is what really makes it, and that your ability to defend was proven. And so, when we pressure tested, and so again, what was that last year? Was that last year or year before?
Maybe a year ago.
So, even though you may have been heavier, well, you were heavier, and I've picked up some of the weight you've lost, but you moved great. You still moved like a cat. I thought it was fantastic. And not only that, everybody else that was in the group with us that was getting to train with you felt the same way about you that I did. And that, which again takes me back to some of the most amazing people that I have met because of this, when I get to travel the country and meet them, because now there's no telling who you have in your room. I mean, you get former, military people who have done time in Fallujah and things like that, or you get, and they have like the Marine Corps martial arts program where you get guys coming in with modern army combatives and then black belts in every discipline and former, UFC fighter and so on and so forth. So I get to meet some pretty amazing people, and every single one of them, like yourself, that are skilled, they get it, and they go, look, they're not trying to make you a ninja. Just listen to this. This is one piece for this one part. And, like I said, hopefully when you retire from EMS, you still share the message with us, because maybe by then we'll be big enough that we've got you on, full time doing part of the international stuff, But like I said, I'm just truly blessed to have you on. Then what do you see, or let me back up. Do you have anything that you would like to say to people just in general regarding, violence in healthcare and what you've seen over the years, and what maybe some things that we might have them look at, or what they might want to consider? Anything at all that you can think of?
Well, I think that in every situation, you obviously don't want to go into a situation thinking somebody's going to hurt you, but always go in a situation of awareness. I think today what I find, especially in younger people, they're so tied up in their iPhones and those kind of things. They kind of live in their own little world, which is understandable. I mean, we had Tonka trucks when I was a kid and stuff. That was like high. You were high tech if you had like a scooter. Nowadays, they're so wound up into distraction, like coming out of the mall, or going in on an ambulance call, or walking in the emergency room with a patient you don't know. Just your head up and keeping your head on a swivel, always knowing what's around you, keeping your wits about you. Preparation is not paranoia. Preparation is being ready for any kind of situation that may come about. Whether and like we constantly are teaching, whenever you make that contact with the patient, have your hands up in the survey stance, just so that my hands are here, because if my hands are here, there's no way I can stop a punch. And we talk about that in class. I teach that all the time. And if nothing else, I'm a hands talk kind of guy when I'm talking with a patient. I have my hands up here. And one of the things I really liked about this program is it's merely in perception. The perception of your hands up here is defensive. But I can defend myself from this position. I can strike from this position. I can do everything I can from this position in the same similar way I can do it. But this position looks like I want to fight you, and this position means, hey, I don't want this. And in those perceptions, whether it's on video later on, a situation happens, because we all know what they do to us doesn't end up on the video. It generally starts after it starts, and then the video comes up, and it's about the time that I am around and it looks like I'm being aggressive with somebody. But any of those things, it's just a matter of complete awareness of what's going on. Watch what you're doing. Watch what your partner's doing. I may not necessarily be there and worried so much about myself, as I'm more worried about my partner that I'm with. Together, when I'm driving down the interstate, I'm back there with the patient. If the patient gets violent, man, I know my partner's going to pull over and jump right in the scrap. But if I can do a few things, number one, good customer service, talking to that patient, people don't punch you if they like you. So
That's right.
I generally try to be, to all those EMS people out there, let me just give you a little bit of advice that I give to everybody anyway. So you're getting it no matter what. We all have regulars. We all have our people that stress us, and every one of you right now are thinking of 2 or 3 people in your service area that drive you insane. But you know what? It serves no purpose to be mean to people. And this is from 28 years, 29 years in EMS. I have been mean to people. I have been in trouble for it. I have gotten, my scoldings from my directors and my supervisors. And if you are nice to people, whether they stress you to death, whether you just hate to go out on this same call that you've been on 2, 3 times this week, go in there with a smile on your face. Hey, what's going on? Put them on the cot, find out what they want. Okay, get on the cot. You may not be giving them pain medication maybe they want, or the care that they specifically demand based on your experience with them and their symptoms and such. But you know what? You can always be nice to them. Put them on the cot, talk to them nicely, take them to the hospital, drop them off, and then chit-chat on the way back from the call, and you guys can exert all of your frustrations. I've found that being mean to people serves no purpose. They'll only complain, and they'll be right to complain, and you'll be in the wrong for being mean or saying things you shouldn't have said. And then you know what happens tomorrow? You think you've changed that behavior in any way? What do? Tomorrow? They call again. And there you are, back again on your 48-hour shift twice now. And you think, I'm going to be meaner? I mean, there's nothing you can do. So I've learned, I just go in, smile. Okay, what's up? All right, sure. On the cot, in the truck, to the hospital, drop off, get back into service.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Here you are, you're a big, strong guy. You're very skilled, and you can handle your business. You've been doing all this stuff. You mean to tell me you're not going to turn around there and tell that meanie or tell that person how it's going to be? Instead, you're going to be nice? I mean, what the hell? What'd you do all that training for if all you're going to do is be nice?
Well, it's like in Roadhouse. You be nice. And then maybe get your partner, and you both be nice. Until it's time to not be nice.
That's right.
And what do you do then? Well, they don't have a cooler, but it's up to you to defend yourself if they are not being nice and they come at you. But to instigate something, which is usually how these things start. Usually things start, somebody's aggravated. Our verbal de-escalation format, which is very good. Validate their concerns, what you can do and what the problems are, and then ask for help. Mm-hmm. It's so easy when you look at it from that aspect, and it diffuses so many things. But if I get in that argument with them, that escalates it. They get worse. I get worse. They get worse. Then that switch does go off, and then I become the guy that's not so nice, and I win. There's no situations that at least in my own mind, that I'm not going to win. And I had one in a recent class where I was teaching, and I let somebody put me into a choke because he wanted to see what if they get it under the neck and they get the full choke on. What do you do? And there's things you can do. We don't really necessarily teach it. Hey, this young 21-year-old guy against this 51-year-old man, It probably shouldn't do it anymore. Used to be able to do that stuff and get away with it a little bit easier. But I realized, maybe I need to taper that back a little bit because I am a 51-year-old guy now. But I, of course, turn into him, step in behind, put him on his side, roll him on the ground, roll up on him, pin the head, reach for the nose to do something nicer. But I ended up with a finger in his eye. And I said, okay. He'll let go. And I insert a little bit, and he doesn't let go, and I insert a little bit further, and pretty soon it lets go. He poked me in the eye. And I said, yeah. And I got out. One of those things that's a learning experience. Maybe I need to stop that because one of these days, one of these young bucks is going to put me into a situation I can't get out of. So, experience and all those things come into play, but really learning people skills. That's the toughest thing to teach any new EMS person. I can teach them how to start IVs, a paramedic. I can teach them how to intubate. I can teach them how to do a good assessment and a good survey. But you know what you can't teach people is how to talk to people. Just sit there and carry on a conversation. And that I found has gotten me out of so much more trouble than anything else, just talking to somebody, even if they're mad, talking to them, letting them vent, you know, and turn it around on them, you know, and let them, and then have them by the end of the call. I've even had people I've had to be stern with, you know, I wouldn't say mean, but I've been stern with several. And by the end of that call, we've talked so much en route that they like me at the end. And it's
well,
okay.
and it's an interesting point that you brought up too, because that's so true. The more you know, and again, you can take it back to human animal, you know, you can take it to race, you can take it to all these things that you're processing all this information in a short amount of time while we're dealing with someone. And what I found that was really interesting was, you know, if you take paramedicine and you really start to add your experience into it, and we think about how many times we've been called to, say, a chest pain or a shortness of breath, and you arrive on that chest pain call, and your brain goes, man, this just isn't chest pain. You know what I mean? So it's that processing that you start going, you know, it's not cardiac related chest pain. So you start looking for these other reasons. The same thing goes is, you know, I will tell you that what was so interesting about what you just said was, in my experience on the road as a policeman, the actual more skilled I became in all of my martial arts or weaponry or whatever you wanted to put into it, the more skilled I became, the less I ever used it. Meaning I spent more time talking to people because I understood my truth, you know, and then the truth of combat or the truth of, you know, conflict, that, you know, nobody really wins. And I know that some people will always tune in because they want to see us showing some technique, where the truth is, if you really want to know the safety thing, it's a tactic, because on the job in healthcare, we're already behind the 8 ball. It's not like we're showing up as a soldier. It's not like we're showing up as a police officer. We are showing up as a healthcare provider that more often than not gets attacked by surprise, where if you would have used your awareness and, you know, kind of gauged more things and not get pissed off personally, that we solve more of the problems than, and you said it earlier, man, and I will agree with you 100%, because I can't agree anymore, but 100% agree with you that most of the violence in healthcare that I have researched, an overwhelming majority of it actually came because of something we did or didn't do. You know what I mean? It was the way we behaved at any given time, or the way we failed to do something, you know, that was appropriate or reasonable. Many of the assaults that have occurred that were bad assaults that have been by a third party, where the providers are supposedly dealing with a patient right here. This person comes from a distance and is mad at the providers, and then the providers try to command someone and tell them what to do. Next thing you know, they're in the middle of a violent assault. Not just a little pushing, shoving, barking match, but I mean cutting, stabbings, you know, beatings that are horrific because of, again, they think it's a joke when we say customer service, but people don't get it. Somebody doesn't want to punch you in the mouth when you're being polite or nice to them. And why does it, the stuff that we're saying right now is almost some of that stuff, that sage, you know, adage that, you know, like our parents or somebody else said, boy, you need to make sure you do this in life. And we never listen until it's, you know, we're the old guys looking at the young guys, you know what I mean? Going, listen, please, just listen, you know. But, you know, awareness, kindness, especially for what we do, because what is our role? Our role is in custody. Our role is supposed to be care. You know, we were, since the Geneva Convention, healthcare has always been seen as neutral on the battlefield, yet we find ourselves getting into battles that we didn't need to be there before, or that we didn't even need to be into. And a lot of it comes down to, you know, like you said a minute ago, we get into an argument and we want to try to force something on someone, when instead we could go, hey, look, man, I was here to help. And people don't get it, that it's, like you said, the awareness, it's the prevention. Because no matter who you are, man, even if you walk away from a combative situation where you're in the middle of the mix, and you only ended up with a bloody nose, but you knocked them out, you still ended up with a bloody nose, plus all the crap that comes in after this, you know, because we were on the job when it happened. But, you know, all I can say is I'm really thankful that you're a part of the team, because, you know, once you became a sounding board, and I think you're a brilliant guy. You've always been a good medic. You've always been a great medic, great instructor, a great peer to so many people. And what is so funny was that so many people that I met over the years, who I truly respect, would always drop your name in a positive way. Hey, do you know him? Do you know him? Yeah. And why did it take me so long to get to meet you? You know, that's the silliness. You know.
Well, I think it was for both sides of us, because it's like one of those things when you hear about somebody else, your first initial instinct, I think, on everybody's part is, well, he ain't better than me. You know what I mean? Hey, this guy's great. Yeah, he's great, but maybe he's great, but he ain't better than me. You know, and I think everybody's got that little bit of an A-class, you know, king of the yard thing going. And like I said, it was like, oh, you know, I heard about you over there, and you try to get into Mercy, and Mercy would go, we don't need you, we got a guy, and I was the guy. But again, you know, I always look at other instructors and other people teaching whatever. I take it for what it's, not necessarily what I've heard or what people say or what they say about themselves. I watch them. I watch them when they teach. I watch them when they interact. I watch them how they move. I watch their feet. I watch their hands. I watch how, you know, because we've all seen videos and these crazy videos, and you're going, oh my God, this is just so stupid. So I judge everybody based on how, number one, how they treat myself and others around them, and then also what they're teaching and the merits of it. And that's why I walked away going, you know, this is good stuff. It's not inventing the wheel, but what you did is you implemented it in a way, in an educational process. It's like Taekwondo, for instance. I think ATA, Taekwondo, American Taekwondo Association, which is what I studied in for many, many years, is outstanding. Not necessarily what they're teaching, because they're teaching the same thing as the other Taekwondo school down the street, but in their philosophy, in their approach, how they go about teaching and organization, all those things come into play to where you see something as, you know, that if I was going to go, I'd be going to this school or that school, maybe based on a lot of those things. The same techniques, and you still teach round kicks and front kicks and side kicks, you know.
But it's your truth. You know, it's why you chose to do whatever it is that you do, because it's your truth. But you sought it out, and then you said, "Well, what makes sense, you know, to me?" And that, you know what I mean, when you're looking at it, and that's kind of like always been my deal, because, you know, you and I have talked at great length about, you know, different people that we know in the same, you know, circles, and we're like, how did we not, you know what I mean? It's like, well, that dude's a brilliant over there, and that dude's brilliant over there. Why were we not listening sooner? You know, I mean, it's just, it is what it is. I reckon.
You know, there's a lot of naysayers in the world. There's a lot of guys out there that never have met me, that would be the first ones to badmouth me, or never met you and be the first ones to my face go, oh yeah, I've heard of that guy, but yeah, he's this and that, and boy, I wouldn't mess with that. I wouldn't even waste your time there. And I usually take those and go, oh, okay. And then I recognize the source, and then realize that they may or may not know anything about this person. So like I said, and I've done that my whole career. You hear stuff, and then I go meet the guy and then work with the guy and go, what are you talking about? This guy's outstanding. And I walked away with that with you, and I walked away with some philosophies that you were talking. And like one of the things I stole from you, absolutely stole, is to be the 90%. And I loved when you said that. It made so much sense, because no matter what you're being taught or told by somebody, truth is truth. And whether you know it's true or not, in your, you know, at that particular moment, you think about it, you reflect on it, and you realize truth is truth, and it makes sense to you, and so it is truth. And when you said that, be a 90%, be a 90% guy, that made sense to me, and I started using that in my class as well. You know, be 90% on the ground fighting. Be 90%, better than 90% of other people, of the general population, in your hand-to-hand, in your shooting, in your knife, in your stick. You're never going to beat. There's a guy down the street that can whip me 25 ways across the middle. There's a guy down that street that can take me with a knife 10 times across the middle. But if I can be a 90% guy, that, hey, any given situation, if I can operate at roughly 90% of the population, I can be 9 out of 10 people. That's as good as I can fully expect.
Yep.
And the guy who thinks he can beat everybody is the guy who's ignorant, because he doesn't understand that.
That's right. And that's somebody I don't want.
Somebody better at whatever you're talking about.
That's right.
I mean, there's somebody who's the best. I've just never met that guy.
Yeah.
And I don't think I want to. He's a pretty dangerous dude.
That's right. And what's interesting, again, though, back up, like what we talked about earlier, is that the ones that I've met, man, and I'm telling you, and you know the kind of people I'm talking about, you've met them, and you know they're the real deal. They don't go around telling you how much of a real deal they are. I mean, it's like you pick up on it, and if you're looking and you're listening, you know automatically, and it has nothing to do with the way that they're bullying people around or talking down to people or talking the most trash. They're being nice, they're being polite, but yet when they move, they're being, you know, your brain goes, that dude knows what they're doing, you know, and it's like, but they don't have to tell you that. And so it's very interesting that, like I said, it seemed like the more mature, the more I studied, the more I researched, and really sought out those people, you know, similar to the same path you took, you know, always wanting to learn more and to go, how do I be better? How do I be better? That the ones that were really good, didn't act like the people in the movies. You know, they didn't talk the smack like the people they were the humble ones. And then, you know, again, you put a stick in their hand or a knife in their hand or a firearm in their hand, and they were just absolutely incredible doing things that, you know, you look at it going, that is amazing. But then the kicker is they're willing to share everything with you. They don't hold anything back. That is like their drive is to make you better than them. If they can give you everything, that you beat them with their own stuff, that's the kind of trainer that I wanted. And it was like the old saying, what is it? That when the student is ready, the master appears. You know what I mean? And that's what I've been blessed to find is, you know, just people that were so willing to give. And, you know, I've just been blessed. And I don't think I recognized that early on. And I'm so glad that I do now. And having things like this, the ability for us to record it, to share it, so that later on, nobody can't take and twist what you said. They can't twist what I said, because here it is, you know, and it's in factual of all these people. And like I said, man, in closing here, I just wanted to say that I am so very thankful, man. I really am, and I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. I wish I could have met you, you know, 20 years sooner, because I think that the synergistic effect we could have had, you know, because you're a better speaker than I am. You know, you have a way of doing and saying certain things that I think will come across in a way that people will get differently than I did. I would be more abrasive than you were, and I just think that we could have been bigger, faster, you know, as far as even the message, and whether or not it was called whatever it is, you know. But the thing is that with you and I together, the people benefit, you know, regardless whether it's just something they watch on here and we'd never meet them, but the people that you know that we meet will benefit because of you and me together. So I'm very humbled, and I'm honored to have you as someone I respect and call you a friend now. I mean, it's just very cool.
Absolutely. I think the same one you said. I took the information, took the stuff that I had heard and met you in person, and everybody was telling me how much I'd like you. And really, I walked away feeling like, man, we could have come out of the same mother, really, because we have similar backgrounds, similar training, similar philosophies, similar thoughts, similar thought processes. And with the people that have trained me over all these years, from, you know, Master Rick Jewell and Master Bob Jagger, coming down here and learning from everybody I've learned through here, you know, we would have been great friends 20 years ago if we'd have met, and probably would have bloodied each other up quite a bit in those years when we were, you know, younger and stupider, and we thought we could take down big guys and rough them up pretty good. So probably better we didn't meet back then. We probably would have walked away mad.
A few more scars than we do now, right?
Yeah, more scars than we got now. But I'm really thankful that I was, you know, had the opportunity to do the class, get a chance to learn DT4EMS, and actually get a chance to put it out there to my staff and anybody who's interested in it here, and try to be a beacon for change, really, beacon for change and culture change, to get, you know, people on the right ideas, get their thought process, and give them the opportunity and benefit of education. And hopefully, if they ever do get in a situation they need to get out of, that's the end goal, is that everybody goes home, that everybody goes home at the end of the shift, that they got out of a bad situation, even though, like it said in the class, you know, not every altercation is you know, life altering, but it certainly may be life changing. And if they can get away from a situation and not get injured, not get hurt, not to get put out of EMS because of some attack, you know, that's the whole goal. And that's what my biggest fear is, that I, you know, can't reach out and touch the people that need it, and that something bad happens to somebody. And there was an indication, there was a situation where a girl got in a full frontal choke on a call here in the Springfield area. And I really was, it almost affected me very negatively, only because I thought, man, if I could have just said, hey, do that, you know, something
Right.
as simple as arm up, turn your body, break off your neck, you don't die. Luckily, she wasn't killed. But it was a situation that scared me, because I was like, man, I have to reach out and touch everybody now and say, hey, at least this, you know, that one move, you know, you can get out of this choke. Because if that doesn't happen, then what happens? If it's at the mercy of the individual, and they have complete control. And
That's right.
something that simple could have cost a paramedic or EMT their life, and a simple move would have gotten at least off their neck and saved that situation. So, I mean, I was kind of like, hey, we have to teach this stuff. It has to be taught. This stuff, people can die if we don't, and it's something so simple that
that's
just showed it, they will be able to know what it is.
And see, it's the drive. So why, why is it that you want to do it? And when people, if they will understand it and look at it that way and go, look, your drive wasn't for you to say, look at what a ninja I am. The difference was saying, we've got to get these people to understanding, first of all, this isn't okay. You don't have to be attacked, but like you said, man, one simple motion, granted, it doesn't solve everything, but it sure as heck works for that particular situation, which happens to be a very common attack in healthcare. But, what's the reason behind the message? What are we really trying to do? And the truth is, we're doing the same thing. We want to make a difference, man. We want to make it better for those that follow us, because, it was just yesterday when you and I were the pups, and now we're the old dogs, and I'm officially off the road. You're still on the road, but I can tell you right now that 27 years ago, I wasn't looking for retirement. I was looking, going, I'll be doing this for forever. And now I'm like, man, I'm too old for that. But anyway, well, brother, man, I thank you so much.
All right.
Everybody, this has been, Kip Teitsort and Bert Staab with DT4EMS. We've just been talking a little bit about Eve, and I'll put Bert's contact information down in here should anybody want to reach out to him and talk to a man that's absolutely brilliant, understands just dynamics of human conflict, but has inner workings of SWAT and firearms, a stick and knife, and just a bazillion things as well. But until next time, you guys stay safe, and we're all about saving yours while you save others.